Hi, and welcome back to another Stand on Guard. I'm coming live, broadcasting live from Ottawa, your nation's capital, here on a very rainy, overcast Saturday morning. Happy to be back, though. Got lots to talk about this morning. We'll be back in mere moments.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like and subscribe to this station. It's under attack right now in a huge way by the usual forces. We are trying our best to get the word out. Share it with your friends and family. See, the problem is YouTube will not enlarge my audience. So I'm dealing every day with the same audience. They will not show this to new subscribers, potential new subscribers. This is happening to a lot of folks right now. And there's a story I'm going to share with you. I'm sure you've heard about it, but we need to talk about it. This is how CBC is deliberately targeting YouTube stations it doesn't like. And I think it's extremely newsworthy. Want to talk for a few minutes before I get into the news portion of the show here and to say, how do I feel about what's happening right now? I talked about this briefly yesterday when I had Spencer from Make Canada Great Again on the show. I talked about the fact it's like I'm seeing the future. I know what's going to happen before it's happening. No, I'm not talking about looking into a crystal ball or being a psychic or even being a prophet in a biblical sense. Although when I was a young man, I believe I was called to that ministry eventually in my life. But I'm talking about knowing what's going to happen based on what's happened in the past. There's a great scene from the movie Gettysburg. If you've ever seen that movie, it's one of my favorite films. And I've been to Gettysburg probably about 25 times as a reenactor and as a tourist, as an historian. I love Gettysburg. It is a magical piece of history. It's a magical place to be because you feel like you're literally living in history while you're there. You feel like you've entered a vortex, an historical vortex, where you're sharing the past with yourself and with your friends and family. But there's a great scene from the movie Gettysburg with a character of John Buford, Brigadier General John Buford. He's in command of the Union cavalry on the outside of Gettysburg as the Confederate troops are entering into that town. And Buford knows unless they can stop the Confederates from taking the high ground, they're going to lose that battle. And he says, I can see it as clear as day. We'll fight up, we'll go uphill, we'll fight uphill, we'll send every last man to take that hill and we'll lose it. And we'll all die valiantly and we'll pound our chests and say, oh, what courage we showed on that day. I can see the same thing happening right now with Mark Carney. I know this is all a charade. This is a facade. He's pretending to be Canada strong when it's not Canada strong. He's pretending to want to fight for Canada when he doesn't want to fight for Canada. This is all leading up to a globalist takeover. Now, does that sound conspiratorial? That's what Mark Carney's been talking about his entire adult life. Why would he change now? As the old Frank Sinatra song goes, why try to change me now? He has no intention of changing. He has already declared what he wants to do. And it's very much in his DNA, in his blood. This is what Mark Carney is all about, is net zero globalism. Not ever owning anything and liking it. I might return to that later, but let's have a look at some of the news here. This is astounding. And of course, Mark Carney said nothing about this. 50%. He's going to double the steel and aluminum tariffs. This is going to be devastating. And of course, Mark Carney basically said, hey, there's no trade war during the election campaign. It's all over. And Mark Carney quietly dropped the counter tariffs, didn't he? Because he was playing games with Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump's playing games right back. But Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney elected as prime minister. He said so 3 times, including on election day. I like Mark Carney. He says, I like Mark Carney a lot more than that conservative guy. You know why he likes Mark Carney? Because they go back a long way. Yes, they do. Here's some really good news. I love to see this. And I want to say this is a result of the work done by my friend Camille El Sheikh when he went out last June to stop the pride flag raising ceremonies across this country at schools across this country. He had the guts and the courage to go out and stop this. So now the pride, the premier, the flagship, if you will, the flagship Pride Parade in Toronto is losing sponsorship and it's in financial problems. Good. Because this is nothing but an excuse for male homosexuals to go out inappropriately dressed and do inappropriate things. I'll put it that way. You know what I'm talking about. You know what goes on here and what children are exposed to. I would love to see this event never happen again. Because believe me, and if it really has gone beyond the parameters of tolerance, way beyond the parameters of tolerance. And I believe in tolerance and respect. But this parade doesn't show respect for anybody except themselves. It's a narcissistic exercise in sexuality. So I wanted to share that with you. And we have to mention again, this WHO pandemic treaty has been approved by the Canadian government without the consent of Parliament. It was never voted on. It was never debated. There was not even a word in Parliament that it was being approved. It was automatic. We automatically became subject to the World Health Organization's mandate. And in the event of any pandemic in the future, we will be forced to follow the advice, the procedures, and the mandates of the World Health Organization. No questions asked, no protest allowed. And there was no protest and no argument from the Conservative Party of Canada either in this, and that's disappointing. But I'm going to mention this every day because we need to know what we're up against in this country. And this has gone completely unacknowledged by the government and the official opposition. And that's unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable. Now, I want to get to a clip here. This is Mark Carney before the federal municipalities. This is a group that meets every year. And of course, the Prime Minister is the keynote speaker. But watch Mark Carney put on his act here. This is the one face of Mark Carney. This is the I'm such a good guy. I understand average Canadians. This is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. This is towns and cities across Canada come to this event in Ottawa. Mark Carney was there, and it's amazing to watch him perform. And that's the only way I can describe this. This is a performance. Let's watch some of this.
I mean, I'd never get a standing ovation. It's fantastic. Just soak it in. What can we do to build stronger cities, stronger communities, safer communities? And I want to say a few words on that today. And we are at a hinge moment in Canada.
All right. Here he goes again. Safer communities. Where did he get that talking point? Right from Pierre Poilievre. This is right from the Conservative Party talking point. You never heard this before from the Liberal government talking about safer communities. And you hear them even borrowing from Stephen Harper talking about safer streets.
History. It is a more dangerous and divided world, unfortunately. Geopolitical risks are rising, and they are threatening our sovereignty.
All right, so we're back to this again. He has shifted the narrative again back to it's a dark world and it's a polarized world, and Canada doesn't have any friends anymore. In North America, we have to go to Europe. That's the message here.
The global trading system, which has helped power Canada's prosperity for decades, is undergoing the biggest transformation since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And closer to home, our long-standing weak productivity is beginning to strain government finances. It's certainly making life less affordable for Canadian families, and it's threatening to undermine the vital social programs, including childcare, on which Canadians rely. It's very important. It's all are welcome here at the FCM. It's good. Canada's new government will address these challenges head-on.
Canada's new government. Where have you heard that one before? This is a direct lift, if you will, from the Harper government, which for the first 3 years called itself Canada's new government in order to appear that it really wasn't conservative or liberal. It was just Canada's new government. This is what Mark Carney is trying to do here, trying to disassociate himself from the liberal label, and it's Canada's new government. In other words, it's a government that could be liberal, could be conservative, could be New Democrat, but it's the government, and it's going to subsume the opposition and make the opposition a part of this new government. We're all in this together. That's the message from Mark Carney.
With focus, determination, and innovation, and that innovation goes straight to our partnership, because much of that response to those global challenges, the response to global challenges begins right here at home in our municipalities, where together we can build a stronger, safer Canada. And Canada's new government will be a reliable partner to Canada's municipalities on a wide range of issues.
There's the message again. Safe. You're safe with the Carney government, and it's the new government. He says this at least 5 times during this address to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Range of issues. But I'm going to... Yeah. Thank you. I want to focus my brief remarks. I've been told to be brief. It's a bit late for that. But I want to focus on 3 specifics, starting with housing. And in response to the housing crisis that we all know has been eroding Canadian standards of living, the federal government is acting to improve affordability in the short, medium, and long term. And in parallel...
So what is he offering? Has he been very specific about what he's actually offering? Yes, it's block row housing. And that's his solution in the short, middle, and long term. It's not single family dwellings. He's not thinking about affordable housing in the same way as Pierre Poilievre has. He's thinking about affordable housing the way the Soviet Union envisioned affordable housing.
Well, Canada's new government will work with you.
There it is.
Work relentlessly to keep Canadians safe in their communities.
There it is again. Canada's new government will work to keep Canadians safe in their communities. He is literally plagiarizing his talking points from the Conservative Party of Canada now and then. Now under Poilievre, then under Stephen Harper. He is trying to suggest this is not a Liberal government. It's a Canadian government, and it's a one-party state is coming. I know you might think that's too extreme, but that's what he's thinking. And that's why he's talking about Canada's new government.
We will soon introduce legislation to strengthen our border, to fight the traffic of guns and drugs coming into our country.
Hold it. They already have a $1.6 billion plan. What happened to that, Mark Carney? Remember that one over 6 years? That was a joke, of course, because most of the money was going to be spent in years 5 and 6. But what happened to that plan? Has it been buried? Has the money already been spent and we don't see any results? How much is the border fix actually going to cost? And is it really going to be a border fix? Or is this another charade you're playing?
Let me finish so we can have the discussion. Immediately following the election, I stressed two things. The first is that the federal government, in partnership with others, must act with urgency and determination if we are going to build that strong, safe economy. And secondly, we intend to govern by working with others, by working together.
There it is again. He intends to govern by working with others, meaning the official opposition, meaning they're all going to be part of this government. He wants to co-opt the opposition. And this is why I am flying the red flag all week about the risk of the Conservative Party being co-opted. I think they can resist this. I think Poilievre's got the stamina, the endurance, the intelligence, and the perception to understand what Carney's up to. But that's exactly what he is up to. This is about co-opting the opposition, so we're all in this government together.
We know that we can give ourselves far more than any foreign government can ever take away. By working together, we can accomplish great things. We can directly address and solve the housing crisis. We can invest in projects that grow local economies, projects that connect our cities and towns to each other and to the wider world. We can build safer, stronger communities. We can make and build the best country in the world even better. So let's build big, build bold, build now, build together. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Now, this is the best part of this performance before the Federal Municipalities of Canada. This is the best part of this performance. Watch how Mark Carney tries to look like a human being here.
Your legacy lives on with your reputation there with hockey, but also with municipal government, with the words that you've just shared. We're starting off on such an important foot. And can you believe Monday was just Monday that the government came, and the Royals were here on Tuesday, and now here we are on Friday. And I have to say, it's a full circle moment for me and as president of FCM, because I had the serendipitous moment to be sitting next to the Prime Minister January 15th, the day that you announced you were running for the Liberal leadership. And I couldn't have really missed that opportunity to both introduce myself, but also to invite you here. And I think the conversation went, should it all work out for you? Should you become Liberal leader? And then should you become Prime Minister? Would you come to our annual conference? And you actually asked me what the date was. And I thought that was pretty impressive. This is a details person. And so here we are. You said you would be here. You're here. You're already making good on your promises. Thank you so much.
What a guy. He's just so incredibly friendly. And he makes good on his promises. And he is so in control. He makes a promise to be there at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and my goodness, he's there as promised. And He's such a great guy. And this is the message, of course, he wants to send out yesterday from this conference. But look at the message that was sent out yesterday in question period. Mark Carney, of course, wasn't in question period. I was surprised there were so many high-profile ministers there on a Friday. It's quite interesting. But the Conservatives, to their credit, got down to brass tacks. They got down to what's important. Because Mark Carney's not keeping his promises at all. He's spending more money than Justin Trudeau spent, and he hasn't even put or factored in all of the spending that he's promised. So it's about $500 billion, and it's probably going to reach $750 billion by the time the other spending is factored into this equation. But this is great because Tim Hodgson, who is a Carney crony, this is an old buddy of Mark Carney. He's the energy minister, and he slips up here. But first of all, he stays on message for the first part of the question, but then he slips up. Let's watch.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister has a plan, we'd sure love to see it here in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, on the eve of the election, when he was trying to get elected, the Prime Minister went on an Oilers radio show in Edmonton, asked about oil. He said, quote, "There's a massive opportunity. If you look out east, particularly in Quebec, they import about 365,000 barrels a day. 70% of that's coming from the U.S. So we've got an opportunity to displace there." But in the past, well, first of all, he's got a Quebec minister who's now looking at me in complete disagreement with those statements. But even the Prime Minister has said as much as half of oil reserves, proven oil reserves, need to stay in the ground.
The Minister
Which of the Prime Minister's position should we believe?
Minister.
And that minister who was glowering at him, of course, was none other than...
I'm a liberal and a proud socialist, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, it was Stephen Guilbeault who was glaring at Mike Lake there. That's who he was referring
For
to.
energy and natural resources.
Mr. Speaker, to win this trade war, we will build on Canada's terms to deliver the strongest, most resilient economy in the G7. Canada's new government will cut red tape, fast-track projects of national interest, and guarantee decisions within 2 years. We are not building just for speed. We are building for purpose, to have a strong negotiating hand and unlock the next generation of Canadian prosperity. We will get projects built to make Canada an energy superpower.
All right, this is absolutely vague, shall we say, or nebulous, without any substance. We're going to be fast, but we're going to be good. But we're going to have projects. Now, what is a project? Well, it can be anything from something you did in grade 6 as part of an assignment from your teacher to building a pipeline. But he won't talk about the pipeline. That's not a project. The project, is it windmills? Is that a project? Is it more solar panels? Is that the project? He won't be specific because right now, they're in holding pattern. They're getting, solidifying, consolidating support, and then they're going to move in the left globalist direction. This is what's going to happen. You can mark my words on this one.
The member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Look, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister went on to say, like we've got this resource, at a minimum, we should be using it all the time ourselves because we're going to use what I call conventional oil and gas for the rest of my life and beyond. He said that in Edmonton when he was trying to get elected, but he has a history of saying that we should leave oil and gas in the ground. When will this government finally repeal Bill C-69 to create the conditions that will actually allow us to take advantage of this massive opportunity to be realized?
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give a shout out to the Edmonton Oilers who won last.
Oh, nice. A shout out to the Edmonton Oilers. That's about as close to oil as this energy minister really wants to get. But the Conservatives are recognizing the two faces, at least two faces. There might even be three faces of Mark Carney. But the Conservatives are recognizing that there's two faces here. There's the Mark Carney who's pretending he's on side with the energy sector in Canada. There's the Mark Carney who has been the Mark Carney his entire life, who wants to keep the oil and gas in the ground, who wants no pipelines to be built, who does not want to support Canada's energy sector because he thinks it's basically evil. And this is his energy minister doing his best.
So, Mr. Speaker, my goal is to get things built where we have proponents. We will make Canada strong and protect ourselves from American tariffs. I encourage my Conservative colleagues to join us in building the strongest economy in the G7.
The two in the West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's energy sector and economy continues to be held back by Liberal.
All right, wait for it. This is where Hodgson completely slips up. He loses the talking points, or somebody slipped him another page. In between these questions, the talking points change. And this is very significant because this represents the two faces of Mark Carney. Even though Carney's not there, his good friend, his crony, Tim Hodgson, is representing Mark Carney and is exhibiting the two faces of Mark Carney.
Anti-energy laws like the industrial carbon tax and Bill C-69, which blocks all new energy infrastructure. This is compounded by Justin Trudeau's energy production cap, which will kill 54,000 jobs and gut $20 billion from the Canadian economy. This new Prime Minister likes to market himself as the anti-Trudeau. Well, it's time for him to prove it. Will the Prime Minister repeal the industrial carbon tax, repeal C-69, and repeal the oil and gas production cap? Or is he just another Trudeau clone willing to let our energy sector die?
Great question.
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Today, Canadians are facing threats to our way of life from both climate change and American tariffs. We are tackling these problems head-on by building clean energy projects that will fight climate change and make Canada the strongest economy in the G7.
Whoa! There he goes. It's all about climate change. That's the other face of Mark Carney, and that's the real talking point. That's what this government's going to be about, fighting climate change in the same way the Trudeau government was, and everybody has to sacrifice in the fight against this so-called existential threat.
The industrial carbon price attracts new investment, creates jobs, and grows our economy. With innovation in carbon capture, we will build low-cost, low-risk, low-carbon superpower. I encourage my colleagues to join us in building a stronger Canada.
Of course, this is all BS. How is an industrial carbon tax going to attract new business? How is it not going to convince business to leave Canada or not to come to Canada? That's what's going to happen with an industrial carbon tax. This is absolute double talk or news speak. Double think from 1984. Yet we're going to tax people to death. We're going to tax corporations to death, but they're going to want to come to Canada. It's going to attract new business. Somehow, just believe us, please, because ultimately, the Mark Carney government is not about attracting new business to Canada. It's not about becoming an energy superpower. It's not about somehow making Canada strong. It's about fighting climate change. It goes back to what Justin Trudeau said day in, day out in the House of Commons, whenever he made a public appearance. That was his raison d'etre for being Prime Minister. And that is Mark Carney's as well. Now, when we come back, a brief break here to show you the merchandise. I've got a great clip from Ezra Levant, my friend Ezra Levant, and this could be the most important issue of the hour. Stay tuned. Yes, I'm wearing the merchandise, wearing the t-shirt. I am a Canadian, a free Canadian. You got to get one of these hats. And by the way, I'm going to give one of these hats to Jimmy Dore tomorrow night when I'm at his show. And please buy tickets. You can still buy tickets to Jimmy Dore's Ottawa performance, his comedy show, Sunday night. And the information will be in the description. It will be there. And I'm going to interview Jimmy tomorrow night. And I'm giving him one of my hats. I hope he'll like it. But don't go away, because like I said, Ezra Levant is tackling an issue here I think we all need to talk about. Now, this is incredible. CBC brought down a YouTube station that it didn't like because it was a competitor. And I love this. We'll comment.
I saw the most outrageous headline the other day on the CBC. It was so gross. I think they were popping champagne bottles. I mean, they treated it as an amazing victory. No one inside that corporation told them how bad it looked. Here was the headline that they have since changed. The headline was, "How We Shut Down One of Canada's Biggest News Content Farms."
Now, what the hell is a content farm? Isn't that what the CBC is? Is the CBC not a content farm? But of course, this is how the mainstream media disparages YouTube stations or independent media. I suppose they would call Blaze Media or the post-millennial content farms as well, because they don't want to call them news outlets, because only the mainstream media believes it's truly delivering news, although they are the ones delivering fake news.
So just in case you're wondering, the "we" is the CBC, and a content farm really is a negative word for a news site. The CBC did a news story about themselves, and the central part of the story was not reporting on this content farm that you could make up your own mind if you liked it or not. The central part of the story, it was even part of their headline, was "Victory for CBC, silencing and shutting down a rival." So gross. They've since changed their headline. Someone has told them how bad it looked. The new headline is, "This Canadian content farm topped the politics charts on YouTube before it was taken down." But in a way, that's not honest, is it? Because it doesn't disclose that the CBC had it taken down. So I'm not sure which headline is worse, the old one, which was honest and boastful and censorious, or the new one that downplays and I'd say even hides their own culpability. Never trust the CBC. And we're not going to trust the CBC now, even though we are going to talk to the man behind the news site. Now, we're taking two precautions, and this was a promise we made. We're not going to say his name. We're not going to show his face. We're going to blur his face, and we're going to very slightly garble his voice. And the reason for this is that we don't want him to be fired. He has a job. This is something he did as a personal project. And this gentleman, and I'm not going to say his name, is worried that the CBC will come after him. The CBC may yet come after him. They've destroyed his business, and they want to destroy him. Joining us now is Mr. X, who lives, I'll just say, in Atlantic, Canada. Mr. X, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me and for giving me a voice to just be able to tell Canadians what the CBC is doing with all of our hard-earned money that they get, over $1.5 billion every year. And instead of, reporting on things that are relevant to Canadians, they decide to go after business owners and creators and shot us down because we were having more views than they do.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, that jealousy comes through. I'm going to read a little bit.
I encourage you to watch that whole interview on the Ezra Levant show. Kudos to my friend Ezra for doing that. I have been in touch with Mr. X as well in the past week, and I hope to have him on this program to talk about this. And obviously his voice and face will be disguised as well as it was with Ezra's show. This is the issue of the hour. Can we allow CBC to target stations on YouTube or anywhere in social media that it doesn't like, it doesn't approve of? The CBC has no right to be the arbitrator of truth and lies in this country. This has got to stop. I'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks for watching today. Remember, resolve to resist. Godspeed to all of you. This has been David Krayden reporting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. I'll be back again tomorrow.